For perspective, I'm a 19-year-old girl attending college in Philadelphia. It was finals week, and I was in the library studying most of the nights. I was studying by myself for my history final one night. It was around 7 p.m., so the library was not too crowded. I was highlighting some important notes when I felt a gaze. I looked up from my textbook and saw the scrawny-looking man staring at me from behind a bookshelf. I thought maybe he was looking at something else, but no. When I looked at him, he made direct eye contact and did not blink. This was a little weird, but my final exam that was in 2 days overrode any impending strange behavior. I went back to studying. About 10 minutes passed when I felt that I was being stared at again. I looked up from my textbook and saw that scrawny man was now 2 aisles closer, and what was worse, he was just smiling at me. A smile that was void of human emotion, an empty, blank smile. I decided that I had enough of this weirdo staring at me, and I approached him. He was dressed in denim jeans and a dark blue sweater. I asked him if I could help him with anything, and what his deal was staring at me. The man did not blink. He tilted his head slightly. At this point, I was getting fed up. I told him that if he does not leave me alone and stop staring at me, that I will call campus police. The man's bottom lip trembled, and a frown appeared on his face. He turned away from me, then walked away. I went back to my studying, relieved that the weirdo was finally gone. About an hour later, I finished my studying, left the library, and headed back to my apartment dorm. My dorm was on the other side of campus. I shared it with 3 other girls, and I was usually the one who always got in last. It was about 11:30 p.m. at night as I entered my building and headed for my dorm. I took out my keycard and stopped dead in my tracks. On my apartment door, painted in red, was the word slut in capital letters. And what was worse, the giant steak knife was stabbed in the middle of it. At that moment, I couldn't prove it, but I knew it was the man from the library who did this. I took a picture of the door for evidence, and I called campus security. The situation is currently under investigation, but what is unsettling is that to have access to our dorm apartments, you need to have a valid student ID keycard. So whoever that guy was must be a student of this college and is among us. Or even worse, he's not a student and somehow has access to our building. Both scenarios make me extremely uncomfortable. This entire situation was a wake-up call that there are seriously some crazy people out there. Then to the man who did that to my door, I passed my final exam. Fuck you. I'm an 18-year-old girl in college, studying for my biology degree. It was the beginning of my second year, and our first test was this Friday. This kid who sat next to me in class, and I'll call him Jeff, asked me if I wanted to study with him in the library. He seemed harmless, and I always liked studying with others, so I agreed. We met at the campus library around 8 at night. It was pretty packed. We found a corner desk and started to go over class notes and PowerPoints. We weren't even 5 minutes into studying when Jeff started to act strange. Whenever I would ask him a question, he would just stare at me with this blank expression. It was actually pretty creepy, to be honest. But then it got worse. I was asking him another question when he grabbed my face and tried to pull me in for a kiss. I was utterly repulsed by this and proceeded to smack him on the face. I told him I'm not here for that or into him in any way. I packed up my books and left. Jeff was begging me not to leave and apologizing profusely, saying that he did not mean to scare me like that. I told him to fuck off, and I exited the library. I walked back to my off-campus apartment which was only a 10-minute walk. It was about 9:30 at night when I got there. My roommates were all there making dinner, and I told them about how weird and creepy this Jeff guy was. We were all laughing and joking about the situation when there was a knock at the door. I slowly got up and looked out the peephole. My jaw dropped. It was Jeff. He was standing on my front steps. His eyes were red. He seemed to be crying. I told him to get the hell away from here, or I'm calling the cops. I don't even know how he knew where I lived. My roommates all stood behind me, watching in suspense. Jeff said that he could not live without me, and that I was the only girl for him. I could not believe what was happening. I looked out the front door window and told him to leave right now, or I'm seriously calling the police. He looked at me through the window. He held up his arm and rolled his sleeve back. With his other hand, he reached into his back pocket and pulled out a pocket knife. I watched in horror as Jeff began slicing open his forearm. He remained emotionless and said that he loved me more than the pain. Blood started dripping onto our front steps, and I yelled at Jeff to stop. He didn't. He just cut deeper into his veins and arteries. I called the police and told them to get here immediately. When they did, Jeff was passed out on our front steps. He was taken to a hospital for his injuries. And what's crazy, I've only known Jeff for a few days. Never once did I try to give off a vibe that I was into him. I only accepted to study with him as college acquaintances and nothing more. I think I heard that Jeff was going to be okay, but he's no longer allowed to be within 100 feet from me. No other incidents happened after this, and I hope that it stays that way. It was spring break. I was in my final year of college, but instead of going out and partying, I was working in the campus library. Not glorious, I know, but it helped reduce my tuition, and that was well worth it. I was working the night shift. Since it was spring break, the library was nearly deserted. Most students were away, and I was sitting behind the desk, answering a few emails, when the library phone began to ring. I picked it up and asked how I could help them. There was no response. I said hello again, but only silence. I hung up, figuring it was a butt dial or something. I went back to answering the emails. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. I said hello and asked how can I help you, but again, there was silence on the other end. I looked at the number and noticed it was the same as the last call. I said hello one more time, but still, only silence. I was getting agitated at this point and decided to block the number on the machine. No more butt dials. Work went as usual from that point on. There was only a handful of students in the library, so time was dragging by until the phone started ringing. Except it wasn't the library phone, it was my cell phone. I looked at the number and a chill ran down my back. It was the number that I blocked from calling the library line. I hesitated to answer it, but decided that I had to, just to see who it was. I swiped up on my phone, then said hello. This time, I heard heavy breathing. I asked, "Who is this?" The heavy breathing turned into a creepy laugh. I said, "I'm going to block this number if they keep calling." I was not expecting what they said next. It was a male's voice, speaking low into the phone. He said, "Go ahead and block the call. He can see me right now." I scanned the library. There were 6 people total in it, and all of them had their heads buried in a textbook. I decided that I was not going to be intimidated and told him that I do not believe him. He said that I do not need to believe him, but the blue striped shirt that I'm wearing really matched my eyes. The line went dead, then my heart dropped. I was wearing a blue striped shirt, which meant that he could see me and he had to be nearby. I got up from my desk and walked all over the library. down the rows of books, and even into the bathrooms. I could not find anyone. I ended up blocking the number and have not received a phone call since then. But I'd be lying to you if I told you the whole situation was not unsettling. I'm just glad that nothing came of this.